Hi guys, Anne McKinnell here with a review of Luminar made by McFun Software. So this is Luminar 2018, otherwise known as SuperNova. You might have seen my recent demonstration of Aurora HDR, which is also made by McFun Software. Now, I loved Aurora. It has so many great features for HDR that I have actually started shooting HDR again. And when I first started looking at Luminar, I was a little bit confused because I thought it might be the same thing. After all, in Aurora, you don't actually have to blend exposures. You can just open up one raw file and start using the various filters and that are available in Aurora. But after having looked at it, I now realize that these two pieces of software are actually quite different. So let's have a look. So here is Luminar, and let's just quickly look at the user interface. If you did see my demonstration of Aurora, you'll notice that it is almost identical to the interface of that piece of software. So what we have is up here in the top navigation bar, you have an ability to zoom your photo or make it fit to screen. You can make it bigger or larger this way as well. Make it fit to screen again. This eyeball icon here shows you a quick preview of all of the changes that you've made. So once we start adjusting this, I will show you how that works. You have an undo command and history button here. Under Tools, you have crop, transform, clone and stamp, and erase. I haven't used those too much in Luminar yet. What I'm mostly using is the filters and the presets, which are very cool. So this button over here is what turns those on and off. So if you click this, it'll turn that preset panel off and back on. And this one here turns the filter panel off and back on again. Okay, well, let's have a look. So first of all, let's take a look at the filters. So I'll click this filter button here and go add new filter. And now we have the menu of all of the different filters that are available. So you can see there's quite a few different things in here. Some of these are the same as what's available in Aurora HDR. So I just want to quickly flip over to Aurora so that I can show you the difference between the two programs and how you might use them differently. So this is Aurora. Okay, did you see that? It looked like nothing changed, right? But I'm actually in Aurora now, the same photograph open in Aurora. And when you look at the filters here, let's move up to the top here, you'll see I have HDR Basic, and there are things like white balance, exposure and contrast, HDR Enhance. There's saturation and vibrance, and you have structure, denoise, image radiance, which I really love, details, glow, top and bottom tuning. So you can see the various things that are available here in Aurora. Now I'm going to flip back over to Luminar. All right, there's Luminar. And you'll notice that some of those same things are in this list. But there are a bunch of other filters that are in Luminar that are not part of Aurora HDR at all. So the filters that are in Aurora have more to do with HDR, adjusting highlights and shadows to kind of get a more HDR look. Whereas there are a lot of filters in Luminar that are more similar, I think, to the kinds of things that we saw in Nik Color Effects. And Nik Color Effects is a piece of software that everybody's missing right now because Google bought it and then abandoned it. And it's actually just been announced that DxO bought it and they're going to be developing it. But we don't know. You know, I worked in software development for almost 20 years, and so you just don't know when somebody buys a product like that if they're ever going to do anything with it, or how long it's going to take them to release it, and how much they're going to change it. And I can tell you, after using Luminar, I think Luminar is better anyway. So I really don't think there's any point in waiting for Color Effects Pro to come back, because this Luminar has a lot of features that aren't in, or at least weren't in the last version of Color Efex Pro. So let's take a look at some of these filters. So the first one here, Accent AI, Artificial Intelligence. Oops, I just added it twice. So this is a really cool filter because it's like a quick post-processing, because it will analyze your image and just figure out, you know, the highlights and shadows and that kinds of thing, and how it can automatically make adjustments to it based on its analysis of the image. So that's a feature that is not in Aurora. There are a whole bunch of really cool filters in here. So there's advanced contrast, black and white conversion, some things, brilliance and warmth was in the other one, I believe. Clarity. There are a lot of really cool things in here, and I want to show you a few of the specific ones. So it works similar to the other one. You can just go in here, click on a filter, and, you know, start adding it, and then you can click on another filter and, you know, add that, and just keep moving on in the same way. I'm going to delete these. So the other thing that it has, I'll close this filters catalog. These are all, you know, the ones that you can add one at a time yourself based on how you want to change your image. But there are also a bunch of presets. So a preset is a collection of filters. So if you find yourself adding the same filters all the time to get a certain kind of look that you like, you can create your own preset, so you can add it in one click. Or you can use some of the presets that are already available to you, and in one click it will apply that preset. So I just picked one at random here. It's called Sky Enhancer. So one thing that's really cool about it is that right here on the bottom where you click, you can adjust how much of that preset is visible in the whole image. So if right now I look at this and I think, okay, that's cool, but it's a little bit too heavy-handed, I can just reduce the entire thing to, say, 50%. It's processing it. And then I can bring that back up again if I like it, more of it or less of it. You can also see over here on the right exactly what is in that preset. So you can see that the preset uses the tone filter, the adjustable gradient, and the polarizing filter. So if I like the preset, but I think, oh, maybe just a bit too much polarizing, I can just change that right there, and boom, done. So that is very cool. But the best part, I think, of Luminar was also the best part in Aurora, is layers and masks. This feature isn't available in Lightroom. It wasn't available in Color Efex Pro, and it just makes the program so much more powerful. It's truly amazing. So let me show you what I mean. I'm going to just delete all of these that I applied so far. So right now we're on the base layer. This is the image before I made any adjustments to it. I like to leave this layer alone and make all of my adjustments on new layers one at a time, and I'll just show you how that works. So I'm going to go here in the layers and just go plus, add a new adjustment layer. Okay, so now I can go ahead and add one of these filters or add one of the presets or whatever I want to do. So I think I am going to add one of these presets so I can show you how that works. So I'm just going to click here on Sharp and Crisp. Okay, so that's pretty cool. I like the sharpness in the rocks. I think the rocks are too dark. I don't like the effect in the sky. I think it's made the sky kind of look grainy, and so I don't like it there at all. So the first thing I'm going to do is try to lighten up these shadows a little bit, because I think it's made this part too dark. So I'm going to look over here in these filters and see where these shadows have been adjusted, and see if it's just going to be easy for me. Okay, shadows. Here's a shadows slider. So let's just see what happens. So doing that's making the shadows darker. So I'm going to bring that down. And there's also one here called Balance Shadows. Let's see what that does when I click it on the other side. I think that lightened it up a bit. Sometimes it's hard to know. What I usually do, if I'm not sure what a slider does, is I'll take it all the way from one end to the other. So I'll just take it up to the other end and see what happens. Not much really happened there, did it? Okay. So maybe what I'll do is see what the midtones does. And that darkened it quite a bit too. So I'm going to bring the midtones right down. Okay, so that's good. So all of this is on my new layer here. So what I can do if I want to see what this change looks like is use this visibility icon here, and I can turn that whole thing off and then turn it back on again. All right, so now you'll see that there is a brush. And what this is for is the layer mask. So I can define exactly which parts of this image I want to have this effect, because I don't like the effect in the sky. I only like it in the rocks. So I can click on this brush tool, and it does give me a choice. I can use a brush or a radial mask or a gradient mask. Right now I'm going to use the brush. And you'll see it's added a layer mask onto this layer. So remember that the black will conceal this adjustment on this layer. It's like you can see right through it to the layer below. And everywhere where I paint white is going to reveal what is on this layer. So as soon as I start painting here, it's going to paint the white onto the parts of the image that I want to have the effect. Okay, I'll just go ahead and show you. It's almost easier to just show. So I'm going to go ahead here and just start painting on the parts of the rock. And here. Oh, I've actually got my brush at 100% here. I usually lower that a little bit. Okay, and I'm just going to change the softness. You see the feather on the edge of the brush there changing. And I'm going to change the size of the brush here, make it a little bit smaller so that I can do these peaks, get closer into the edge of these peaks. And I'm just going to go and paint everywhere where I want to have that effect. Now, if you're not really sure where exactly you've painted and you want to see the mask, you can click over here on the left, mask, and then click show mask. And you can see everywhere that you've painted. Okay, somehow my painting on the peak there didn't work, so good to know. I'm just going to go ahead and do that again then. All right. Not sure why that didn't work the first time, but I only just started using this program, so I'll go ahead like this. Okay, and now I will hide that again, hide the mask. And I can use the visibility icon over here on the right and turn that off and on. And you should be able to see how that has affected the sharpness of the rocks. And now the effect is not on the sky at all. Okay, great. So that's on a layer by itself. So now if I want to do something completely different, I can do it on a new layer and not risk messing this up. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Actually, before I change, I'm going to rename this layer so I remember what it's about. So I'll double click on here and I'm just going to call this Sharp Rocks. Okay, so now I'll add a new layer, new adjustment layer. This time, instead of using the presets, I think I'm going to use one of the filters and just do my own thing. So if I want, I can click this button here and just get rid of those presets for now so they're not in my way. And I am going to go and look here for golden hour. That sounds something that might look nice on this image. So there's golden hour. I'm just going to get rid of the catalog there so I can see the full image. And let's just see what that does when I add some of that. Oh, that's nice. I like that. Okay, I'm going to use the visibility icon here. I'm not sure if I like it on the foreground or not, so I'm going to just turn that off and back on again. Yeah, it's not bad actually. I think I'm just going to leave that alone. I quite like that filter. Okay, good. So I'll go ahead and name that Golden Hour. Great. Now I want to show you one of the other filters that's new in this version of Luminar. There are a few new ones that weren't available in the previous version. What are they? They are sun rays is the one that I'm interested in right now. And there are a few other ones. I think there's about half a dozen new filters that weren't in the previous version. So I'm going to add a new layer, new adjustment layer, and I want to show you the sun rays because this is just so cool. Sun rays. Okay, woo! All right, it added the sun and rays to my image. Very cool. So it allows you to make all kinds of adjustment to the way these rays look. So first of all, I'm going to click Place Sun Center. Okay, so there's the icon where the center of the sun is right now, and I'm going to move that down because in this image the sun was there when I made this shot. Okay. Now I'm just going to click that again to get rid of that circle. So now there's a bunch of different things you can do here. You can affect the amount of this glowy kind of feeling. There's also one here called Look. So I'm just gonna, I usually just play it by ear. I, kind of play with these sliders and just decide what looks best. So number, this affects the number of the rays. You can have more rays or fewer rays. I kind of like it just about the way it was. The length of the rays, that's pretty cool. You can do a lot of stuff here. Warmth, all right, I do think a warmer rays would be nice. There we go, warmer rays. The radius of the sun does look a little bit big. Yeah, that's better, maybe even smaller. Oh, that was too small. I want it to just kind of be peeking through those clouds. Okay. Glow radius. You see that makes the difference in the glow around the sun and the glow amount. Okay, so you can make a lot of adjustments here. Oh, warmth again. Make that look a little bit more yellow maybe. Okay. So, I mean, this is personal preference again, whether you want to do this kind of thing. You're adding something that maybe wasn't really there in the scene. I mean, obviously the sun was there because I've got some pink clouds, but the sun and the rays weren't actually peeking through the clouds like this when I made the image, or it would have come out like that in camera. But sometimes it's nice to add something like this if you want to, and Luminar gives you all kinds of options for doing things like this, enhancing the image in a natural way and enhancing images by adding things to it that may not have been there at the time. So again, it's just a personal preference whether you think it's okay to do this kind of thing with your images. I'm going to take a look at what that looks like using the visibility icon, and I can turn that off and back on again. So that's a pretty cool feature. I quite like that. So what else? I really think that these layers and the masks are the big thing in Luminar that isn't available in a lot of other programs. The filters are very cool, lots of different options, and options that are very different from what's available in Aurora. The other thing that I could mention here is that Luminar is planning on coming out with digital asset management, and that will be a way to organize your images similar to the way you do it in Lightroom. Mention this only because Lightroom, Adobe has just announced that they're no longer going to be supporting the standalone version of Lightroom. And I think that really sucks. I use the standalone version of Lightroom. I don't really want to pay their monthly fee. So I'm not going to jump on the bandwagon though, to be honest. I mentioned before that I worked in software for many years. And the one thing I learned is not to jump on the bandwagon when software changes or new software comes out. You know, if there's a new version of my operating system, I'll be one of the last people to update, because they always have huge flaws. There's always bugs in the system. And so I'll wait maybe months, for something like this that's a brand new thing. If it still works after a year and everybody out there seems to be happy with it and it hasn't caused any massive damage to people's catalogs or something, maybe then I'll think about switching. If indeed Adobe doesn't support the standalone version of Lightroom anymore. I don't know. I'm not going to jump on that bandwagon right now. I'm just going to wait and see what happens. And I'm going to stick with Lightroom. I've had Lightroom for a long time. It's a solid piece of software. And Lightroom 6 isn't going anywhere. So it's still going to work as long as I have it. So I'm just going to keep doing that. But I did want to mention that this digital asset management is coming in Luminar. And apparently it's going to be free for people who buy this version of SuperNova. So that might be of interest to you. But as I say, I think that this software, Luminar, is worth the price that you pay just for the filters and the presets and everything. This is a really cool system. I really like the way that it works for processing photos, so I'm pretty happy with it. I can also see how there is a good workflow to be had here for using Aurora and Luminar together. So maybe I'll do that for my next video. If you want to try Luminar, there are some links below in the description. I hope you enjoyed this demonstration. I'm planning on doing more of these kinds of demos, so if you enjoyed it, please subscribe to my channel. Thanks. See you next time.